10% of conservatives say that they have ended a friendship over politics. 10%. 28% of liberals say the same. It gets even more interesting. For extreme conservative identifiers, 22% say they've canceled friendships. So that's interesting. Fewer extreme conservatives have canceled friendships than people who are garden variety liberals. Exactly. Aunt Kathy is a ridiculous liberal who loves to harass me on Facebook. That's all there is to the Aunt Kathy story. But Aunt Kathy will return as we talk about this fascinating new study from AEI. Very interesting, folks. For a long time, we've known that conservatives, though we're accused of being skinflints and cheap, we are actually far more charitably minded than the left tends to be. We are called intolerant and hateful, but if you look at an Antifa rally, you can tell. If you compare that to, say, a Tea Party rally from some years ago, you can tell who's actually hateful and who's actually bigoted. It turns out the same pattern plays out when you look at between leftists and conservatives, who's more likely to cancel a friendship. So AEI, the American Enterprise Institute, did a study on this. If you're interested in this topic, you can find out more about it over at westernjournal.com. We have a story on this. If it is not out yet, it is soon to be out. And in the meantime, you can entertain yourself with all the other great content at westernjournal.com. I'm going to read to you an excerpt. This is from Samuel J. Abrams. He's a professor of politics at Sarah Lawrence College, of all places. And he and AEI ran a very interesting study. They sought answers to who is most likely to end friendships over politics. And in fact, he and his survey team were pleasantly surprised to find that the numbers from the May 2021 American Perspective Survey, they actually weren't that bad. Only 15% of Americans report having left relationships over politics. 84% have not walked away, which I guess means 1% have no idea what's happening with their personal relationship.
They don't have any friends.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Well, I'm in that percentage then. You and I both are. Unlike young Cameron, who has lots of friends.
He has lots of friends who he could choose to walk away from if he chose to do so.
So here's what's fascinating about this. 10% of conservatives say that they have ended a friendship over politics. 10%. 28% of liberals say the same. It gets even more interesting. For extreme conservative identifiers, 22% say they've canceled friendships. So that's interesting. Fewer extreme conservatives have canceled friendships than people who are garden variety liberals. Exactly. Here's where it really hits the fan, though. By contrast, a whopping 45% of extreme liberal identifiers have ended a friendship over politics, twice the figure of their conservative counterparts. Now, the twice the figure part that's a little distressing, but the raw number itself, 45%, I mean, that means half of extreme liberals out there have ended a relationship over politics. Now bring Aunt Kathy back into this. Going into the election, Aunt Kathy would just increasingly would harass me on social media. I would post something, and I don't, my days of posting super duper inflammatory stuff, those have for the most part gone behind me. But it was unbelievable the way she would respond, and it was like she watched my Facebook feed waiting to pounce. And it got to the point where I had to message Aunt Kathy and say, Aunt Kathy, I love you. You're wonderful. And if we can get to the point where you don't do this anymore, wonderful. But I'm going to have to mute you. I'm going to have to turn you out because it's just ridiculous. I'm just being harassed and harangued by this person. And so I don't know if that puts me in that 22% or that 10%. I hope it doesn't. But she essentially created a situation where the relationship had to be paused. And so I guess that brings up the question, maybe I'll ask Cameron this first. Cameron, are you surprised by these numbers? Are you surprised both at the direction that it's more liberals than conservatives who cut off relationships, and are you surprised by the magnitude of the difference?
Oh, I'm not surprised at all. And I'll put this into the box of studies that we probably didn't need a study for because most of us have probably lived it. And I think kind of back when I was like getting started into doing political commentary, like you said, kind of everyone goes through the phase where they're like posting things just to kind of get a reaction out of people. You can kind of you learn who your friends are when you have that political awakening kind of phase. And I lost a lot of people. There are some people who I went to school with that will literally just like comment stuff now on whatever I post or go behind my back and say certain things. I have an uncle I haven't spoken to since 2007, thinks I'm alt-right.
Maybe he can meet Aunt Kathy.
Yeah, they'd probably get along well.
Maybe that's probably not safe for on air, but I'll tell you about that later. I think there's a whole superiority complex that a lot of liberals have, that they think that conservatives are so morally flawed that they think it's acceptable and a good thing for them to walk away from these friendships. And a lot of conservatives, a lot of us don't view liberals as our enemies. We view them as people who their viewpoints are flawed.
Their ideas are wrong. Yeah.
Their mind, but they are not in themselves, usually speaking, evil people.
Right.
And that's a big difference between liberals and conservatives, just generally speaking. And I think this study is just putting data behind what a lot of us already knew.
So, you were listing at the beginning of this, Josh, the things that liberals accuse conservatives of that they are, in fact, most guilty of, right? Charitable giving, and this kind of
tolerance.
Yeah, lack of tolerance sort of idea. The one other thing that liberals often accuse conservatives of doing is putting themselves in echo chambers. We only talk to each other about our own ideas. That's exactly what the effect of this is. These are liberals and extreme liberals, in the case of the 45% number, who are just amplifying the echo chamber that they already exist in. People who have different opinions from them, they can't take it. They can't listen to it. And the reason for that is, we're all talking about family members. I may as well do this too. So my sister teaches English at a college in Massachusetts. So you can just read liberal, extra liberal, even more liberal than that from all those qualifiers, right? She's in Massachusetts. She's at a college. She teaches English. There may be somebody on the planet more liberal than she is, but I don't know that I've ever met them. She once told me 7 or 8 years ago, and I love my sister, and we get along just fine because we don't talk about politics. But she once told me that my mom, I think, had asked her, "Hey, have you been reading the stuff that George has been writing?" And my sister said, "No. Basically, I can't take it. I can't do it." Something like that.
Well, in her defense, we have a hard time taking it when you write.
Well, that's true. Most people have trouble reading what I write, especially if it's done in my own handwriting. I can't even read that. And I said to her, I understand that. I said, if all of my opinions were based on emotion instead of fact, I couldn't take any opposing viewpoints either. She really didn't like that response, and now we don't talk about politics. So, but it's true. Liberal. Another truism that I've often quoted from the late great Charles Krauthammer. Conservatives all think liberals are stupid, and liberals all think conservatives are mean. And it's not that liberals are stupid, it's that they choose not to think. It is that they prioritize emotion and feeling over thought and result, right? On the left, the intention of the policy is what the policy is judged on, not the effect. Whereas conservatives judge it based on what actually happens. What do we think will happen? What did happen? That's what matters. And it's not that the results of many policies are not perfect. So conservatives make this choice. So we're going to go with this policy that is less imperfect than this policy over here. Whereas liberals literally invent a policy that in a perfect world might result in a perfect result and decide to implement that as if we lived in a perfect world. which is ludicrous.
Yeah.
It's just ludicrous, but it feels good.
Yeah.
It feels good to do it. And that's what you get with this kind of lack of communication. It's just a reinforcement in liberal circles that that's the right way to handle policy. And it is a vicious circle.